Okay. I say maybe we just a couple more minutes. Hope everybody's enjoying the weather. And we've got, as I said, we've got 6 city council members present. That's great. So we've yet to really call this meeting to order. We're just waiting for everybody to come in. Boy, this is just a really a kind of a new way of doing things, huh? It's kind of hard to get used to. Well, I guess we're kind of getting used to it at this point. Hi, Cynthia.
Hello, how are you?
Good, good.
Good.
1 second. Did anybody have a problem with the password?
No, I didn't, at least.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. I just got some feedback from a friend that for some reason the Thomas. We post the. Is there any way we could make sure that for people that are struggling to get the the password, that we post that somehow? Allison, are you on? Okay. All right. Okay, we're gonna get that posted. Okay. I just want to make sure everybody gets started.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started, everybody. Let me just take a look at this. I got, is it 57? I got to put on my 58. 58 members so far, and hopefully that number will climb. So it's great to have everybody here. Thank you so much. I think I've said several times now, we've got the council president and 5 other council members present. We've got our council president, Susan Honda, Councilmember Baruso, Councilmember Linda Kochmar, Hong Tran, and Martin Moore. Thank you so much for joining us. And we did note this as a potential quorum publicly because we're going to have our council present. So very much appreciate your partnership. I want to say, first of all, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to have, if anybody has anything going on in the background, you may want to mute like a TV or anything like that. That way it doesn't interfere with people talking. The most important thing that we do today is to make sure that we communicate with and listen to our, to our fellow residents. And I want to make sure that everybody knows that when we first started talking about this, that we were thinking about maybe having some presentations, and we're going to have some people talk initially, but I want to let everybody know that we've scaled those back. And we're not going to do PowerPoints. The most important part of the evening is to hear from the community. But I did want to make sure that we did reach out and have some key folks in the community and at the city participate, just to make sure that it gives a certain amount of background and context, and to make sure that we have a good conversation. So that's what this is all about, is to have a genuine conversation and to hear from people and to be the best representatives we can for you, because we work for you. So we're going to be, let me just go over the agenda real quick. We're going to have some introductory remarks by Pastor Gordon Banks.
I
Can you please,
I'm
whoever's
here.
whoever's talking, can you please put mute on? Because
I just
everybody can
muted him,
hear.
Mayor.
Okay, great. Thank you. We'll have some introductory remarks by Reverend Banks, and he's the pastor of Overcomer Covenant Church. I've given a brief overview, but I can talk briefly again after that. We'll have a presentation or at least a quick conversation from our police chief. And again, we originally thought that was going to be about 10 minutes. Let's just do 5 minutes at this time. And then he's obviously available to answer questions and any information that you would want to have presented. We also have the chair of the Chiefs Call, Dr. Bob McKenzie. He's going to be talking for about 5 minutes, but once again, he'll be available during the conversation. Then we'll have a conversation by or a presentation or speaking briefly, the chair of our Diversity Commission, Julian Franco, and I believe we've got several other members of the Diversity Commission that are present, and they were certainly invited, and want to make sure I acknowledge and thank them for their service and their presence here. We have Municipal Court Judge Dave Larson, who I'll say a few words, and thank you, Your Honor. Even though I've known him for years and years, and he was Dave to me before, it's always Your Honor now. So, and we're really blessed to have such just a great public servant in Judge Larson. And then we're going to hear from Lynn Idahosa. She had presented the council via email and myself some materials that we've gone through. And I was actually looking, Lynn, are you on the call now? Okay. Hey, Bill, why don't you call Lynn and see if there's any.
No, I'm here. I'm sorry.
Oh,
they
great.
bounced back and forth. I'm here.
Okay, very good. All right. Well, we can't have this without you, Lynn. And we want to let you know we've gone through the materials. And then we're going to talk next. We'll have a discussion about whether we want to do the quarterly meeting and what that looks like. And then once again, the most important thing is to have a public forum and to hear from our fellow residents, or hear from everybody on the line. We're thinking this is just going to go from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And that's really what we're contemplating now. This will be recorded, and we'll put this on our YouTube station and on Channel 21 as well. With that, why don't I kick this over? Let's get this started. Reverend Banks, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. It's glad to be a part of this and be with everybody. Certainly, these are challenging times for all of us. And so when challenging times come, great leaders step up to meet the challenge. And that has been a history in America that we have done. For me, I'm trying to do my part. We have a large church that's diverse with a lot of different people. So the ability to rally everybody together is a skill or an art that I think we all have to adapt as leaders in the community. I wanted to talk just a little bit. I've given some remarks before about the path forward, because at the end of the day, when all this is said and done, we as leaders are going to have to be able to craft a path for everybody to move forward. There are certain things that we do now that are different than we did just a year ago. I mean, we're wearing masks in the middle of our conversation, and we're sanitizing, pre and post, and we're concerned with certain things in people's lives. So there also is going to be, once this comes to an end, bless God, hopefully soon, but it doesn't look apparent like this is going to go away overnight, that we prepare things for the people that look to us with some sense of stability and strength that's solid, so they can build a firm foundation and trust in that. So I talked about a few things, and I'll just kind of comment on those, and then I'll be quiet. The first one for us is our path forward. So we live by love. We lead with love. We're going to give and serve and honor, all with the same principle of love, because people always want to be embraced and accepted, and you gravitate to people that love you and care for you and serve you. I'm here right now, and actually in Texas, I'm serving a family whose mom had passed, and they had been caregivers for her for 8 years, her daughter. And so they're part of my extended family in the spirit, so I came down to serve them. And anytime we demonstrate that type of love to the community, it does make a huge difference, because love always gives at the expense of the giver, while hate always takes at the expense of the receiver. So I don't want to ever hate and leave you worse. We want to live by love. The second characteristic of the path forward for me is diversity. We have a diverse environment that we live in. Diversity strengthens your foundation, and it builds a legacy to go forward. If you have diverse, everybody sometimes gravitates to somebody that looks like them, talks like them, acts like them. But in a diverse environment that's going to be lasting and build a legacy, it has to be people that don't always look like we look, talk like we talk, and act like we act. But we treat each other with a spirit of acceptance and love and mercy and compassion. The third characteristic, I think, for the path forward for us is forgiveness. Forgiveness does not allow the person who's guilty to be released. It allows the person who extends forgiveness to have freedom. And so I want to be free, so I'm going to forgive. I'm not going to hold people to something of the past. Their behavior should not change my character. My character is one of love and diversity and mercy, so I'm going to forgive. I'm not saying that that's easy. I'm saying it's very difficult, especially when you're getting brutalized. But we have to forgive. We have to learn the power of forgiveness as God's people. The fourth one for me is compassion. Compassion, I find to be a crucial element that fosters change for good. Long-term compassion makes a difference in people's lives. That's why women have children, because they love, not because they want to have more pain. It's because they just want to have more kids, more love, more excitement, a bigger family. If that was left out, there's many children on the planet as there are today. But compassion is a crucial element that fosters change for good. And as we have compassion for those and not demand their way and really understand where people have been in the past and their ancestors in the struggle, then we flow together and we can do greater things. And the fifth one for me is generosity. That's the last one. It allows us to celebrate together. People love people that give and serve and honor. And we need to be generous people, give of our time, our talents, our treasure, be the difference makers in somebody else's life. And I think if we can model that together in Federal Way and the surrounding cities, then we become a beacon, not only in Washington State, but throughout the coast and in the United States, as people that do it right and really lead in this path going forward. So hope that helps somebody, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Thank you, Pastor. I very much appreciate that. And we very much appreciate the event that you had at church about, I think it was about a month ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just very impactful. And I think it was, we had some of the people that are with us today that participated in that. And I appreciate your leadership and for your wise words. Thank you. So I want to welcome everybody to our first ever African American Black Community Forum on talk about these issues. This really began from some discussions that we had that I was having with the Federal Way Black Collective. Before I say another word, Lydia, I didn't introduce you. We've got Councilmember Lydia Asefa Dawson joining us. Thank you so much. And we also have, and thank you so much, Lydia, for all your work on behalf of our community. We had all you were on the second page. And so as soon as I turned pages, I'm like, oh my God, I forgot to introduce Lydia. So thank you so much, Lydia.
I even waved at you at the
And we also have School Board member Lakeisha Phillips. And thank you, Lakeisha. We've been having great conversations and it's just been very important. And she's a real leader. And actually, she initially suggested this meeting. And then we had another meeting. I've been meeting monthly with the Federal Way Black Collective, and the idea came forward again, and it seemed timely. Before I go any further, though, I think it is really important to recognize the life and legacy of John Lewis. What a tremendous gift to this nation and to this world. And, one of the things I said, and I've certainly been thinking about, and I know we all have, as I think he's the first African-American statesperson representative to Lion State at our nation's capital, and that's happening right now. Mm-hmm. And, not only did he nearly give his life crossing the famous Edmund Pettus Bridge, but his life was really dedicated to being a bridge for others to succeed, and a real true legacy. And even as a month ago, he was, out and about and really talking about bringing this nation together. And so, very important and very his life was dedicated to causing good trouble, as we saw. I love the COVID-19 face masks that I've been seeing. And I think that's very apropos, and that's nothing more American than that. I think this is a good opportunity, a great opportunity for us to come together as a community, and to have real honest dialogue and conversations. And I know that we can do that. And actually, I'm so proud of this community, as I said in a op-ed to the paper, about how really woven in the DNA of this nation is e pluribus unum, that from many we are one, and that the way that we have approached this this time in history, in our community, in our region, in our nation, makes me proud of Federal Way, and that we've been really coming together. And I love the conversations that we're having. All right, so I'm not going to talk. I promise not to talk too much, and that is always a challenge for me. So I just want to say thank you so much for being part of this. We're going to have a good conversation, and we're going to be here to take any questions and to participate. Let's kick it over to Chief Andy Wong. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I'm very pleased to be with all of you this evening. I hope you find the information that I'll be sharing with you to be informative and interesting, and that it contributes in a positive way this evening. The city of Federal Way is the 5th largest city in King County, and we're the 9th largest city in the state of Washington with a population of 98,500. And today we could be a city of 100,000. The Federal Way Police Department is nationally accredited. We're a full service police agency with an authorized staffing of 167 employees and 134 sworn police officers. We're very proud of attaining our national accreditation status. There are 260 law enforcement agencies in the state of Washington, and we are just one of 8 police agencies in the state with a CLIA certification. There's also 53 law enforcement agencies in the state that have a state accreditation, meaning that about 200 agencies in the state do not have any sort of accreditation at all. Moving forward, you'll see a significant effort from the law enforcement community to be accredited in the United States, as well as from the state of Washington as part of the police reform efforts. As a nationally accredited agency, we provide higher level of training to our staff. The Criminal Justice Training Commission requires that all state police officers complete 24 hours of annual in-service training to maintain their certification. The Federal Way Police Department offers our officers minimum of 50 hours of in-service training, and that's just in-service training. Doesn't include training they seek outside. All our supervisors are certified, have certification from the Criminal Justice Training Commission. We require that as part of our accreditation. Commanders have to have middle management certification. Deputy chiefs and myself, we have executive level certification. In order to obtain those certifications, there are a lot of other training requirements. So we take our training very seriously. For rest of our staff, on an annual basis, we provide these training, and some of them are biannual. But one of the things that we do in the Federal Way Police Department is we have what's called a Chief's Address. This is where we have 6 or 7 sessions where I meet with each one of our employees. We talk about our vision, mission, our guiding principles, the importance of earning the public's trust, and our core value. One of our core values to treat citizens, all citizens, with respect. So clearly it's my responsibility to set the tone from top to bottom, and that's one of the things we do here. Other trainings include fair and impartial policing, crisis intervention training, use of force, de-escalation training, legal updates, handgun, rifle qualification, defensive tactics training, and a lot of our training incorporate reality-based training. I can explain more if somebody has a question later on. Every other year, we do ethics training, value and diversity, harassment training, immersive vehicle operation, active threats training, and much more. So those are just some of the key trainings. I know maybe tonight I thought somebody would bring up the training issue, but I wanted to share that with you. In terms of reform, in light of what's happened in our country, the protest on police brutality, there are a lot of reforms that are going on. And here's what I can share with you, what I believe is going to happen at the state level here that's going to have impacting all the law enforcement agencies. And we do many of these things already because we are already an accredited agency. But one of the things you're going to hear about in Olympia and at the national level will be accreditation. That will be one of the ways to increase or improve the professionalism of policing and just improve policing overall. So there will be a request for funding to support law enforcement agencies to get accredited. A lot of agencies don't go for accreditation because there is workload and there is a cost impact. So one of the benefits of accreditation is you undergo best practice audits from outside folks that critically evaluate your agency. And I can't emphasize how important that is when you have outsiders look at your agency and make changes that way. Standardize the use of force statewide will be a topic. Reforming the civil service laws that would greater access for chiefs to seek more diversified candidates for their organization. And I know people think the chief can just hire who he or she wants, but that's just not the case with civil service laws. That the police department doesn't actually conduct a test. It's an outside department. HR conducts a test. We just get a list of people. So they're looking at ways of how can we make it so that we can change the law so that the chief can hire a more diversified workforce that has maybe the best impact to the organization and to the community. So they'll be looking at that. Reforming the independent investigation. There's two ways. This is regarding use of deadly force. One way will be either a state team that investigates all officer-involved shootings, or some sort of a review mechanism. What exists now, but maybe there's a review mechanism to make sure all the laws are followed regarding the LATISA laws, which is a Law Enforcement Training Community Safety Act, Initiative 940 that passed. Reform the binding interest arbitration will also come up. Making it harder for officers who've been terminated by the chief of police to get their job back, and also certification, making it maybe easier or harder for someone to defeat a chief that's trying to take away someone's decertification for excessive force or serious breach of public trust. And one of the other things, a reform that will be recommended too, is submitting data regarding the use of force by all the police agencies in the state of Washington. We already do that effective January of 2020. Another topic that will come up is elimination of use of neck hold restraints. And then body cameras, maybe seeking funding for cities or law enforcement jurisdictions that want to do those technology, maybe some sort of incentive or grant that becomes available from the state. And these reforms come from the governor's office, Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, and the Criminal Justice Training Commission. So I can just let you know, as a policy group, as a community, these are things that will be talked about. There isn't going to be a special session, my understanding, no special session this year, but so these things will come up in January. One of the measurements that we look at is use of force. I wanted to tell you that we've been able to reduce the number of use of force in our city. Last year, we had 56 use of force. Just to give you an idea, 6-7 years prior, we were averaging about 90, sometimes even 100 use of force in a given year. We're really pleased to report that we've been able to, one of the measurements, reduce the use of force incidents, and we're at 56. And I would measure those use of force numbers with any jurisdiction of our size. And we're a busy city. We have 75,000 calls for service. And in terms of force, we use force less than 0.1% in our enforcement contacts. And just a couple more points left here. I wanted to share with you that in 2007, this was voters passed the Prop 1 in 2006. So in 2007, we were authorized 136 police officers given us 1.6 officers per 1,000 residents. In 2020, today, we're 134 officers, 2 officers less than what we had 13 years ago. So we're at 1.36 officers per 1,000 residents. And I want to just close this out by saying the police department, we're ready to partner with community members, with policy group, state legislators. What I really believe that what divides our society today is that our inability to address the social issues and the social economic factors. And what we see in law enforcement, we're quite often, we deal with the most extreme social issues, but we need to have mental health reforms. We need to be able to treat people who are suffering substance abuse and drug addiction. We're still recovering from the opioid crisis, pain pill medication. A lot of our people are addicted to drugs. We need to get treatment for them, which ties closely with homelessness. We need to find issues and inequities with education, and then poverty. When I talk about poverty, it's more of employment, jobs, gainful employment for people. And so I would tell you that for us, I know one of the things that our topic is defunding the police. I can tell you right now, just our workload in terms of addressing domestic violence, crimes, investigating those, sexual assault cases, adult protective services where we have abused adults or financially or physically, child protective services where they're abused, sexually abused. We have violent crimes. So we have our work there. I just wanted to kind of put that in perspective that we are prepared to work with others. I know police sometimes we're the most visible arm of government, so we're sometimes the focus, but we really need to work on the root causes of what's dividing different people within our society. So thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you. We're running a little bit behind schedule here. Let's go to Dr. Bob McKenzie. Doctor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to just spend a little bit of time just explaining what it is that we do as far as the Chiefs Advisory Group that we call Chiefs Call. I've lived in Federal Way since 1982. And when we did move here, one of the places that I went, of course, was the school district, and then to the police department, and trying to figure out exactly what we needed to do and how we could be a help in getting things done.
Actually, Doctor,
yes.
Dr. McKenzie, can I interrupt you for a second? I forgot to, there's something I forgot to do. Representative Jesse Johnson has joined us. I just want to say shout out to Representative Johnson. Thank you so much for joining. We've got actually quite a number of people that have joined now. I think we're up to 93 people, but so sorry, Dr. McKenzie, I got to do that. Go ahead, please.
That's okay. And what I'm going to do is just read the purpose. Well, when Skip Reese was the mayor, we had a meeting with a group of people and trying to determine how could we get involved in as much of the police action that we could. And at that point, we put together what was called just a group of us who would meet with him, not with him directly, but we'd meet and then go from there. That didn't work as well as I thought it would. And when Ann Kirkpatrick became the chief of police, I went directly to her office and said, look, what we need to do is be able to work out of your office as opposed to working against your office and looking for information, trying to figure out what we could have done. So that gave birth to Chiefs Call. And what we started doing is with a group of people within the community, we decided that we would sit with the chief about once every month or so and just talk about what's going on in the department and how we could be involved in it in terms of help. That came to be known as Chiefs Call, and it has been going on now for about 15 years. And what I want to do is just give you a definition of the purpose and practices, and then when there's possibility for questions that needs to be answered, then we can do that. And I'll read it directly to you, the statement of purpose that we got involved in. Express purpose of the group is to serve as a personal communications channel and information access pathway between a select group of Federal Way civilians and the police chief. Accordingly, this group is not selected to provide oversight, but rather to provide insight, which is an essential precursor to good leadership and community-oriented policing. Adhering to this level of community engagement assists all in avoiding the slippery slope of hindsight by enhancing the chief's ability to make more informed and just decisions. And in so doing, the group's efforts enhance every person's ability to play an active role in the action planning processes concerning public safety within the city of Federal Way. And that became our creed for what we were doing and how we would do it in terms of our work with the chief. And there's a lot more to it that we can talk about later, but that's the basic setup and the basic premise. So if you have any questions that you want to ask later, of course, I'll be glad to do that. And if not, we go from there.
Very good. Thank you very much, Dr. McKenzie. And thank you for your service. Now we've got Diversity Commission Chairman Julian Franco. And Julian, could you also introduce your fellow commissioners that are present on the line if you're aware?
Of course. Thanks for having me. Let me look at who is here. So along with myself, I know we do also have our Vice Chair, Nichelle Curtis McQueen. We also have Commissioner Trinice Rogers. We have Commissioner Brandon Bruin. We have Commissioner Judah Lotta. We have Commissioner Larissa Lincoln. It's a good problem. I'm going through everyone that's joined.
What a great turnout. Thank you so much. Okay.
And I believe that's everyone that I see. If I miss one of our commissioners, I'm so sorry. But I'm glad about half of our commission has turned out for this meeting. And thank you again for the invite, Mayor Farrell. But my name is Julian Franco. I'm a citizen, community member, and proud product of Federal Way. But I also serve as the chair for the Diversity Commission in our city. First, I'd like to provide some context on who we are and what we do, because there's a chance that many of you may not know, and there's no shame or guilt in that. It's wonderful to constantly grow and learn about resources. I'm glad to have spaces like this to learn more about community organizations, partners, and advocates for diversity and inclusion efforts. I invite you all to check out our website that has a lot of information and also our work plan. It's on the City of Federal Way page. Our mission, as noted on our website, is to advise city government to ensure Federal Way is a community that is united amidst diversity, where everyone is equally respected, valued, needed, and cherished. If you look to our work plan, it's divided into 4 parts, our most recent work plan. First, the Diversity Commission will gather input from the community regarding equity and diversity issues, similar to spaces like this. Secondly, our commission will remain visible and relevant to all members of the community through participation and or sponsoring of events and activities to promote our mission. We do have 2 major events that we put heavy efforts and energy into. First is our annual Martin Luther King Jr. celebration held at the Performing Arts and Event Center. I've had the pleasure of working closely with these events and partnering with local student groups such as Decatur's Leadership Class and Thomas Jefferson's Black Student Union to put on amazing events. And secondly is the Flavor of Federal Way. We typically annually have that, but due to COVID this year, we did have to cancel the in-person event that was supposed to happen at the end of next week. However, it was recently passed through our council that we are able to do a virtual Flavor of Federal Way this upcoming week, August 3rd and 8th. And it's wonderful I can bring this to this community to hopefully get your partnership in helping us find different local restaurants, nonprofits, vendors, performers, and artists to really help us spotlight the talents that we have in our city. As we've seen through data, COVID is particularly impacting businesses of color at a disproportionate rate. So let's come together as a community to support them through this virtual event. And the last 2 points of our work plan is we hope to invite individuals into our meetings as individuals, groups, or organizations to engage with our commission and also to gain awareness on timely local, regional, state, and federal trends pertaining to equity and diversity initiatives. Again, you can look online and see it in detail. But recently, as we've seen a heightened awareness through media of racism that has been and continues to impact our Black community, we came together for a special meeting in June to create objectives and form subcommittees to explore what we could do. And the 4 areas that we wanted to work on were: 1, awareness of organizations in the local area and invite them into our space to see how we could collaborate and partner together. 2, explore training opportunities for community members and also local influencers. 3, see how we could leverage our digital efforts better during these trying times. And 4, focus on intentional community forums similar to this to gather and grow in inclusion, equity, and justice. All of our commissioners are volunteers. They're all community members with various professional experiences, cultural backgrounds, and diverse contributions to our group. And as I've said, a number of them are actually in this meeting today, and I hope that they join me in dialogue during the public forum later on. I think our commission is at an exciting crossroad where nearly half of our team is new to the commission right before COVID hit our area with fresh ideas and perspectives. We have a new leadership transition with myself as our former chair, Greg Baruso, now transitioned to supporting us as a council member. And we're in a time in history where diversity is beginning to move beyond just good intentions. I'm now entering my 3rd year on the commission, and I know we can do more as a group and as a community, and I know that we can do better to serve you all. Here's how I would like to move forward and hopefully hear from all of you during this public forum. We need to address systemic racism. It exists. Some of our community have the privilege of avoiding it. Some of our community encounter it in mild manners or through microaggressions. And some of our community overtly encounter it every single day. So for our community members that don't encounter it, how do we address that ignorance and get them to listen? Once they're listening, how do we get them to keep an open ear for learning and really relearning and changing? And for those that are now listening here, how do we build a community force of advocates? So to our Black community members here in Federal Way that are here in this meeting, thank you. Thanks for being here at a government-sponsored meeting. It's brave of you to be here. Your community is being attacked. You're forced to balance defending and mourning, and your existence is becoming politicized, clouding the fact that you're just trying to be humanized. Government, policies, political systems, these among many are some of the largest systems encapsulated by systemic racism and biases. For our Black community that are not here today, it's understandable. There is a deeply rooted history that policies and regulations are enacted to explicitly and implicitly widen gaps of inequity. So why should you trust them? And as the Diversity Commission, why should you trust us? I hope this forum allows a dialogue and an open ear, and I hope we can build trust and collaboration between our commission and all of you. And I don't want to take too much more time speaking. I'd love to dedicate more time to elevating voices in this Zoom meeting who might finally feel like they have a voice. Thank you again for inviting me into this space.
Thank you, Chair Franco. Thank you for your thoughts. Okay, now Judge Larson.
Thank you, Mayor Farrell, for the opportunity. I really cherish the opportunity to share tonight. Pastor Banks kind of hit it on the head. If we can maintain the spirit he talked about at the beginning of this, we can conquer just about anything, because that's where it's at. You know, a lot of people think judges have all this power. We deliver justice. We don't. The best we can do is repair. Justice comes from how we treat each other. The source of justice is our interpersonal relationships. That's where they come from. Pastor Banks talked about leadership, and these days it seems like we value leadership where you kind of get your way. And leadership, true leadership, the kind of leadership we need is about finding our way. And that's the kind of leadership that Pastor Banks and the other folks have talked about tonight. I've lived here for 53 years. I moved here when I was 9 years old, so I'm old. I'm 62, and seen a lot of changes. And I was a lawyer handling large civil cases for a big law firm before I went to traffic and misdemeanors. It was an eye-opener when I came here. You know, I'm exposed to the pain that erupts from domestic violence and the misery that happens with DUIs. But what I've witnessed the mistrust and anger from the Black and brown community, and it's deserved in a lot of ways, because our punitive system, and doesn't necessarily cause racism, but it certainly reinforces and aggravates it, because basically we tear people down instead of try to build them up. And the most painful thing I see is the missed opportunities, and the missed opportunities to reach people that first time they ever come in the system, trying to reach them then. And we just say, well, it's just a misdemeanor. But I've seen the changes in people. I can look back at their records and saw if somebody would intervene early in this person's life, they wouldn't be here right now with their 50th crime and been in jail, recycled through jail over and over and over again. What I say is I run a repair shop, not a junkyard, because my role is to help those people have better lives. What ends up happening is people end up getting caught in the system. And if we can keep them from getting, like I said, that first opportunity to get them before they graduate to felonies, that would be great. I was at Federal High School speaking to some students one time, and again, I handled huge cases before I became a judge. And the person said to me, "You don't handle very important cases, do you?" One of the students. And I turned to him and I said, I handle the most important, because I can reach somebody before they graduate to felonies, before they graduate to more serious crime. But because of the attitudes we have in the system, that it is, well, it's just a misdemeanor, it's just a theft. Well, try getting a job with a theft conviction on your record. Try trying to do things with those, with the various blemishes that occur. And sometimes things happen so rapid fire. If we're not proactive to try to reach somebody early, it can get out of control real fast. And we're devoted a lot of resources these days to helping the people that are out of control. But this is an opportunity for us to really rethink how we approach justice, rethink it in the way to where all of a sudden we meet somebody the first time in their system and we say, how can we help you? How can we make it so you don't have to come back? And really look at the person, meet them where they are, and figure out how we connect them in a way that keeps them from coming back. Because we want to have less police and less courts. The best way to do it is each of us living justice in our daily lives. This is an opportunity to build something, and it starts with each and every one of us. We can't look to other people. We look to ourselves first. I know that I can't change the past, and nobody on this call ever can. But every one of us on this call has an opportunity to influence the future. Every one of us. And it starts with us as individuals, even as a judge, with the people I see every day, and what I can do, what I can put people in jail, and the power I have in court. I know with all humility that I can only control myself. I can only control what I do, how I react, how I act. But I have to model that behavior to other people. And if I don't do that, then I'm to blame. I'm to blame if people fail. And it really comes down to accountability for ourselves first, accountability for each other, expecting a higher plane of existence of each other. We're living in a world that's toxic. A lot of people are benefiting from us hating each other. And we just got to stop that, because there's a lot of people that benefit from that. So I try to do my best just to be a humble servant. And that is what I will continue to do. And my hope is that we can build something special in this community that we can be proud of and be a model for other communities. But again, it starts with each and every one of us. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity because we have some exciting things that we can do together. So thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. I very much appreciate your comments and your wise words. So thank you. And for your daily work. Chair Franco let us know that Shakina Justice of the Diversity Commission is on the call as well. So we want to make sure that we acknowledge her and thank her for her service. And now it is time for Lynn Idahosa. Lynn?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I will just kind of dive right in the interest of time, because I know we're running a little bit behind. So when communities don't traditionally have a voice, we are unable to assess the value of having the voices at the table. I'm so glad to have this space now to give a voice to our community. I want to first reiterate the need to also establish similar meetings with other communities. It is important for everyone to have a voice and be able to participate and understand the importance of participation in various levels of civic engagement to truly be a part of our democracy. It's literally the fabric of our country. I'm glad we have the police chief committed to doing the work, but the reality is on a budget level, especially due to COVID-19 and the events nationally we're currently experiencing, we need to seriously take a moment and reimagine what we see in preparation for the legislative breakfast in January, where we as a city share our partnership ideas with the 30th District legislators. I completely respect the work our police department do, and I'm excited to work on changes to enhance what they currently do by prioritizing budget cuts that can prioritize the work that police really need to handle and remove the tasks that they shouldn't, which is a better way to handle funding on a statewide level as we attack statewide budget concerns. We as a community have to hold our electeds accountable and also be a true integral community partner We need to make sure that as myself, as a community-based organization, we have the funding to do the great work we are tasked to do by the federal government and the city and other municipalities. And that we have the public servants in the right roles with the right funding backing the departments in a way where our system is not paying so much for unintended consequences, because that's what we're dealing with right now, a lot of unintended consequences. Defunding the police is not a negative conversation. Let's leave the misconceptions behind and start from a place of questions so we can move forward, because the reality is every department that works for our residents is going to experience cuts. And we need to reallocate what we have to address that effectively. Data is relative. It shows the answer to what we are asking. I would love to know what data proves that only investing in more officers makes a city safer. I would say that when we look at from the lens of what we want to know, then we will know what we're truly working towards. The chief knows that our residents need comprehensive programming, and the reality is police officers should not be involved in some of those services. We have plenty of departments that are already skilled in those roles, and we need to activate that. I'm so grateful that people like Dr. McKenzie have served on the chief's call and all the work that they've started. Nationwide, we're starting to see a new normal of how we move forward. Let's strive to be ahead of the curve, and let's see how we can all work together to create impactful system reform right here in the City of Opportunity. The Federal Way Black Collective has strived to be a voice to our community, and that's why we're able to have this meeting tonight. The reality is, regardless of how you feel about why we're here, we are here now, and we all should be striving to work together. There are so many unprecedented factors that have accelerated our goals of community empowerment for not just one group, but for us all. Based on partnerships with many of you on this call, we have been able to start the work on a policy level to move forward. And I just encourage everyone tonight to take some notes, think about what you can do as an individual so we can all work on improving our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. And thank you for the materials. I reviewed all of them. Okay. Now, as I say at the, that we've got the discussion. Let me ask you this. Let me just throw this out to the group. Do you like to see? We've had for the past 26 years, I believe, a Korean quarterly meeting. And would you like to see this be a regular forum that we have on a quarterly basis?
I'll be honest, I thought that was already agreed upon.
We just wanted to talk to the group about it and just and get buy-in and
Yeah, I absolutely. I thought that that's why we were here as well.
Yep. Okay. So
Yes, Mayor, absolutely. I support that idea.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Okay. Anybody else?
I was under that impression as well, Mayor Farrell.
Okay. All right. That's what we'll do then. We'll have a quarterly meeting and we'll get this out. Yeah, exactly. I wanted to make sure, instead of just doing something by, actually, Lynn, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Instead of just snapping my fingers and saying we're going to do this, I wanted to have this first meeting, get everybody to buy in. This is something we're going to do. The Korean quarterly meeting has been around for a quarter of a century. And so I want to make sure that we're all on board. And
hopefully we could be around a quarter of a century too.
That's right.
And longer.
That's right.
Mr. Mayor. Actually, that's a very important point. I want to make sure we're referring to policies. So what would that look like to make sure that's an integral part of an ordinance, to make sure that's a continual thing? So this isn't dependent on someone scheduling it. It's actually required that this meeting's continued. I think that's important.
Who's in office?
Yeah, correct. In fact, actually, when we were talking about having this meeting. One of the things, oops, I just did something. 1 second. We were talking about having this meeting. I lost my screen here for a second. There we go. We were, my first thought was, let's take it, because I wanted to respect the Diversity Commission, and I wanted to put it to the Diversity Commission, and then have it go through council, and then have our inaugural meeting, because I really wanted the Diversity Commission to be involved in this. And I scheduled this and I didn't go to the Diversity Commission first. And if I were on the Diversity Commission, I wouldn't have necessarily been all that happy with that. It's like, and I'd heard some feedback of, hey, we'd really like to be involved. That's why I reached out individually to the Diversity Commission members to let them know how important their participation in this is. So that's what
That
we'll do.
brings up
What
a
we'll
very
do.
great point, Mayor Farrell. I think when we do our monthly meetings with the Black Collective, the Diversity
Yeah.
Commission should be a part of that so that we can
Okay.
make sure we're respecting the perspective as a commission for the city.
Hello, can I say something? Mr.
Yeah, who's
Mayor?
that?
This is Tirza.
Oh, hi, Tirza.
Hi. I'm just a little frustrated because I know that we had said how this meeting was going to go. And if
Mhm.
it's taken 25 years for you to invite the African American community to have these meetings. And then our discussion was that we wanted the meetings to be how we wanted them for us, by us, not you taking over the meeting and setting it up and setting the agenda. We had clear discussion on that. I feel like we've already been here almost 2 hours and none of the stuff we came here to talk about has been discussed because there was an agenda set that did not include us helping to set that agenda.
I
don't want
agree.
that to be
I
taken
agree.
away.
I was wondering as well, like, what, like, in the future, who's gonna set the agenda and how it's gonna work? Because it just seemed like it kind of wasn't. It's like a African American meeting, but no African. I mean, not no African American spoke, but it was like I don't know who was a part of the agenda and how are we gonna move going forward? How does that look?
Well, it's the first one, and when I was talking with the Black Collective, I think about a few weeks ago, the request was to get one in as soon as possible. So we set this meeting up, and we wanted to make sure we got this started. So that's maybe one of the things what we'll do
Absolutely.
as we create this sometimes the most important thing is just to take that first step. That's what we're doing here. And so, I wanted to get the conversation rolling, invite some, people to have these conversations. And then, and so we're having it. So what I would suggest
Thank you.
we do, oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you, Lamont. And that was Lamont, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, what I would suggest is perhaps we start with the Diversity Commission, get some recommendations. Let me just throw this out just to
Mr.
start.
Farrell, again, Mr.
Yeah.
Farrell, again,
Yeah.
Federal Black Collective brought this to you, so we don't want you to take over and start inviting other people to take over what we started it. We started to have communications, so we can all have communications. Since we started it, I think we should be in charge of continuing it and inviting the people we want to the table and having that community. I mean, because the problem that I'm having is that we ask you what we want, and you give us what you have, just like the mad flag. You ask that flag instead of less in it. No.
Tears, you broke.
Well, let me finish saying. Let me finish talking.
Tears, I can't hear you. No, Tears.
Yeah, you're breaking up, Miss Tirza. You're breaking up.
You're broken up. I missed the last 30 seconds.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, because I respect you and I have a lot of respect for the police and everything else. But what I'm saying is that we have continued to have this happening. That is why the world is on fire right now. We are tired of saying what we want and then you give us what we have. So we have said what we want. We don't want you to take over. We don't want you to give us what you want us to have. We want to have real community conversations where we can talk about what's important to us and what needs to change. And policing is one of the major issues that everybody should be talking about. Accreditation means nothing. When you have police officers on the force in federal way that are choking out African Americans and on the force.
Breaking up again. You're breaking up again,
So
Miss
those
Tirza.
are the kind of conversations that we need to keep having. So that's all I wanted to say. I want to be part of the conversation, but I won't say that like we don't know what we came here for.
I agree with Ms. Tirza, but I also thank the chief and I agree that we want to sit down and partner and try to figure out solutions. I agree with what Ms. Tirza is saying, but I also am glad that the chief is open and welcome and the city of Federal Way is open and welcome to sitting down and figuring out solutions, but also those solutions have got to come from us because we're the ones that we're talking about. We can't, we can gloss over it and say, these communities over here, these communities over here, but specifically, this is the African American community and what we need to help our community as well as others, but we're focusing on the African American community in this area.
Can I share something? Can I share something, Mr. Mayor?
Sure, of course.
The way I saw my role tonight is to come before you and express my commitment, right? That's the way I saw it. And that's the way I saw the mayor, this first volley is to start that kind of adventure building our trust together. And so right now it might seem like, well, everybody's kind of talking at you instead of talking with you. But the thing is this is the first opportunity, and what you're getting is what I've heard tonight is an expression of commitment. How that looks, I think that's where the trust is built, by being able to have that kind of, just like what Tears has been doing, say, hey, wait a minute, and people listening, and then going from there. That's how trust is built. So I think the fact that there's some tension right now and trying to figure this out, that's a good thing, because people are open and they're talking about it. And they're saying, wait a minute. And so that it's all about perspective. And I hope people have that perspective, that we have, this is opportunity. There's going to be some growing pains, but we never, 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 never give up. So that's just my 2 bits.
Well, thank you.
This is Kevin Baker. Can I, may I?
Yes.
Add?
Yeah, please, Kevin. Yeah.
Thank you. So again, my name is Kevin Baker. I'm with Baker Consulting, and I have a business in Federal Way. And part of my business is diversity, equity, and inclusion training, facilitation, trauma-informed care, and other workshops that I do. And based on the discussion that I've heard thus far, I believe that there is some preliminary work that really needs to happen prior to some of these conversations, to begin to build understanding, to build and understand what authentic community engagement looks like, to build and understand the history of the country and how these systems came about, to understand and learn what building relationships mean, and how does white supremacy culture take over and then enact itself on bodies like this, right? And how do you really do community engagement? And I say those things based on just some of the comments that I've heard, right? Like, we all are here because we all want to see good work happen. And we're concerned about the community of Federal Way, right? So it's a matter of how that happens. But first off, we have to make sure that we're all on the same page when we talk about definitions and when we talk about how these systems came to be and what is the impact that they're having on the Black community and other communities, right, within Federal Way. As an example, dear Judge, if I can use you as an example, the criminal justice system is built on white supremacy culture. So it can be good to think that we're doing good now, or we're attempting to do good now, but that is the foundation that it is built upon, right? So then how do we begin to restructure stuff with that, understanding the harm and how it came about, right? So I think there's some basic things that really needs to happen, with this as a group in order to really get the work that you all would want to see done. And thank you also for saying that it would be uncomfortable, because it will be. 2 things don't exist in the same space and time, and that's courageousness and comfort. So yes, it's wonderful that everyone is willing to be uncomfortable, but there is some basic groundwork that needs to happen so that there's a shared understanding with everyone on the call and that participates.
So,
thank you, Mr. Baker.
Mr. Baker, what I've discovered that the magic elixir is, it's called the magic of dignity and respect. And in the justice system, sometimes people come into it and we treat them like they're a criminal, right? Literally, because it tears them apart. But they start out with dignity and respect and start there. I've seen the magic of that turn around lives, not just people, Black and brown people, everybody. And so that's where the justice system needs to go, is kind of glomming on to that magic of dignity and respect, trying to build people up instead of tearing them down. So you and I are on the same page.
Yeah, so Judge Larson, and with this group, it seems like the partnership with the city and the things that we've been doing, it seems that we can build on as a group how we can address our issues in our community. One of the things that Judge Larson's talking about was deferment and also what was it? Where you have a mediation court. So these are things that if some of the issues in our community are the fact that you might get caught driving without a license, and then that you miss a ticket now, and it just escalates. So some of these things that are happening in our community, we can really address through the city and through the judicial system. So with this group, hopefully the quarterly meetings will be to say what we're doing better and how we can get better. So through this, like this is the beginning, but moving forward, have more attainable solutions as far as like, hey, we helped out with helping people defer small crimes or whatever the case, so they don't have to enter the system. These are some of the things that we talked about in the calls that we've had with Judge Larson. So hopefully we can do the same with the city, working with the police, working with how to help with that training, and like Lynn said, how to make it to where we don't have the police doing everything. And so hopefully some of these meetings, because the police deal directly in our communities, so it's very important that we have a connection there.
So I have a question for the group, and that is, does everyone on here have a shared analysis of what the complex issues that we're dealing with are?
Well, before we do that, and you raise a very good point, Kevin, but before we do that, I think we need to go back 2 steps. The first one was we all agreed that this would be a quarterly meeting, but we need to make it official. So Mayor, would you please, whatever that process is, whether it's an ordinance, whether it's the mayor's, I don't know, an amendment, whatever it is that is required to make this a quarterly forum that is with the city and the Black community, can you make sure that that happens and that we are aware of what that process is? That's number one.
Thank you, Cynthia. I know I've been trying to, I've been thinking about the opportune moment to jump in. That was my thought with regard to starting with the Diversity Commission, then going to council committee, then going to the council, and then having it go that way. Let me look at this and figure out with the structure with our city clerk about how to do that, but making sure that we institutionalize something to where it's common. I want to let you know that the agenda for tonight was modeled on how we do our the Korean American quarterly meeting, which the directors, what we do. Many of the people that are involved in the Korean American quarterly meeting that regularly attend, there's a language barrier, and so we've got Michael Park, a former mayor, a Korean American, former council member for years and years. He is an interpreter, and we get reports from directors, and we give a certain number of reports. So when I did the agenda for this, it was really modeled on how we've done, the Korean quarterly meeting for a quarter of a century. But I do think that what I want to do at some point is get the Diversity Commission involved, get the council involved, and really perhaps talk about how we structure this. But we'll take a look at it. That's
that
what
really sounds like what we
discussion.
want, though, Mayor. That really, that really sounds like getting reports from the different department heads and how that affects our community directly. I mean, I don't see a reason to. I mean, there might be some small things that we might alter here or there, but that sounds like the type of meeting and that was what under the impression that I was under as far as like what this would look like going forward. So I know this is the first one, but that sounds exactly like.
Yeah.
And anybody else could chime in as well.
So let me go to my second point was, number one, the process, making sure that we make sure that this does happen, and that regardless of politics or changes amongst the council.
Or who's in office.
Or who's in office,
Right.
that this becomes something that the city will do. The second point I wanted to make is once we figure that process out and make sure that there's a commitment tonight that that process will be figured out and we will get it done, is the second thing, which I think Lamont and Kevin was trying to address, which is the issues that we are concerned about. So let's be clear, right? That if it had not been for technology, we probably wouldn't be having this discussion right now.
Right.
Because the death of George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd, has led us to this point where we can now have an open dialogue, right? And so what's very, very important is that the communities that have lived the George Floyd life, right? That we have an opportunity to come and talk about the policies and the priorities of the city and how they may conflict with us having access, us having equity, us having inclusion, and how there might be barriers, okay? And so we are now addressing one of the issues, which in the past has been direct communication. We now have this forum. So we want to make sure that those of us in the community who have been subjected to racism and supremacy and institutionalized racism, that we have an opportunity to come and talk about in a very respectful and in a very safe way our issues and how they can be addressed by the policies, programs, and the budget of the city, and what the city can do to advance that to the county level as well as statewide. And so Kevin, Lamont, I think that we need to be clear, and all those from the Federal Way Black Collective and those of the rest of you here, all 93 of us, that we agree that that's what this is about. And that may look a little bit different than the quarterly Korean meeting.
Yeah, very
Okay.
much different. And yeah, so that's what I want to get a sense of. And I also want to make sure we've got maximum input. We do have, thank you very much, Cynthia. Councilmember Asefa Dawson, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, everyone who's spoken thus far. I think, Cynthia, I do appreciate what you said, but to add to that, I believe Lynn made it clear, and so did Terza, that they wanted to invite this gathering. So I think their input is very crucial, and the fact that they had brought up their concern that you are leading this meeting, Mayor, it may look different. I don't know. And so I think going back, we should have the quarterly meetings. I totally need that. I agree and want that to happen. But I think how it's going to happen is definitely going to look different from the Korean quarterly meetings, but also who sets the agenda is going to also look different, right? So I think we need to be respectful of what we've heard so far and make amends to make sure that we're doing this together collectively with the people who it impacts the most. And so having that in mind as we move forward, I think is critical. And also Cynthia did mention it, and that's what I raised my hand for, is as we council members and the mayor and the city are working on budget, again, we have to consider that. So this, for that reason, is also time sensitive. So the next quarterly meeting is what, 3-4 months out. We're going to start talking budget. So I think there's got to be also either a smaller group of coming together and starting working on policy or ordinance or whatever it is. I think also has to be established and created. And so, and I don't know what that's going to look like, but I think it's something we have to consider. It may not be today, but it's something to keep in mind.
May I, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Your Honor.
In the group that I'm meeting with, been meeting with for a month or so, the thing we're talking about is kind of empowerment and how to empower, because the thing is sometimes we go to government too much, right? And so the idea of going to government and getting pushed back and run into a brick wall because we're going against the power of government, sometimes that can be frustrating, and it can get in the way of actually progress. versus finding ways, and maybe the meetings are ways to do that, to find ways to empower people to be part of the solution. And if every time we go to government, we're going to get frustrated. I get frustrated in government, right? So I'm just food for thought that all of the solutions don't have to come from City of Federal Way or from government. They can come from ourselves, right? And so just as we just planting the seed as we move forward. Because there are institutional things that are part of the way we govern ourselves, regardless of race or creed or color. That there's institutions that are designed to do certain things, and they can get in the way of progress sometimes. Sometimes just empowering ourselves can be something that can be very useful. Just food for thought. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that comment. I'd like to add that the statement kind of denies the fact that we've been living in systems that are full of institutional and systemic racism, and that the institutions and the systems have, in a lot of ways, stopped self-efficacy and things that can happen with communities. So that is where the first address has to happen. And there, in addressing that, then you're able to talk about what does self-efficacy look like.
Right.
Once
In other words,
those systems have been dismantled.
In other words, when does government need to get out of the way?
No, when does government need to do their work?
There you go.
To
That's true. That's true
the
also.
systems that have been put in place that keeps people from achieving self-efficacy.
Okay.
So not get out of the way, but do their own work.
Exactly. And I think we're pretty much on the same page. My only point was there's going to be a lot of frustration if we, and I'm talking me, I'm like I said, I'm in government and I'm a white male and I run into issues. Okay. So the thing is that I think we're really on the same page. And I think my only thing is if the feeling of empowerment is what's missing. People feel powerless because of those things. And again, I'm not going to, I'm just basically just planting a seed that it's not all or nothing. It's just a piece. It's another way of looking at it. So I appreciate it.
Right now you're defending the system.
Well, actually, I'm not. I think the system, like in terms of the court system itself, we sometimes cause more problems than we can resolve.
Judge Larson, stop.
All right. So honest conversations. All right. First, we've got Council President Honda, then Jamila Taylor, and then Lakeisha Phillips. Council President Honda.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, for inviting me to talk. I think we're missing an important group of people, which is the school district, especially the school board, because as a city, we can't solve all the issues that we're facing, but we also need more voices. And the school district works with our children and with our families, and I think that they should be invited to these meetings. I'd also say that I don't believe that we need an ordinance or anything such as an ordinance. The Korean quarterly meetings have successfully been run for 25 years because their community has wanted to keep them going. And an ordinance can be changed with by people who are in office. So an ordinance would not do what I think that you're asking for it to do, but I think if the community wants the meetings to continue, as the Korean quarterly meetings have continued, then the meetings would continue. So I think everyone for
we have to
coming and
demand some
talking
accountability
tonight.
from our elected officials to make sure that there's ordinances in place. If there's an ordinance in place, if that's changed, then that means that us as a community need to hold our elected officials accountable. But the only way we make sure this happens is if there is an ordinance. The community's been coming and talking about tenant issues for years, and nothing happens because you say that there's no teeth to that. So there needs to be some teeth and some accountability to when and how these meetings happen and how we can demand that if they just all of a sudden tomorrow you guys can say, thanks for this one meeting and we're done. And that is not acceptable because there's already been a commitment from the mayor to make sure that this is a policy, that this happens on a regular basis. So that's not gonna be acceptable.
Okay, let's.
Well,
That's the only reason. So that's the only
Mayor, I
reason.
would also suggest that this would go to the Parks Committee after it goes to the Diversity Committee.
So that's the
Okay,
only reason, to Mr. Mayor, real quick. That's the only reason why
The mayor
point
has
that-
authority to make that decision. Without the Diversity Commission or the council's approval, there's no budget to that. So he made that commitment and that should be honored.
So take
Well,
so just real quick, Mayor.
yes.
So
Yeah, Lamont, go ahead.
So basically, that was my point to the structure of the Korean American meeting, because they're meeting with all of the department heads. It's a formal meeting. It's actually addressing, and so even though it might look differently because it's the African American meeting, so it might not all look the same as how the Korean meeting is. I'm talking about the structure and who we're talking to. If we're talking to the Parks and Recreations, if we're talking to the different department heads in the city, then we as African Americans, because I don't want to, this is the African American community meeting, right? So in this meeting, I don't want to, and not me, I think we should focus on African American issues in Federal Way. So with that, if we can talk to the city officials and see how we can coordinate better relationships within the city in those different departments, then we can break down some of these equities and some of the systematical things that Mr. Kevin is talking about. And so, like I said, having a structured meeting, we could, you know, make sure that we're having these, like to Susan's point, where she was saying that the community is asking for this. As an African American community, we're asking for this. So we're just asking for structured meetings that are going to happen quarterly that are addressing our issues.
Okay, thank you. I think that's spot on. I think what we're going to turn it over to Jamila real quick, but I want everybody to know we're going to have the quarterly meetings, but I'm going to do some research in regard to how the Korean American quarterly meeting got set up and what it looks like in code and all that. So there's a little bit of research on my end that
cool.
we're going to do on the city's end. We'll figure that out, and we're going to get that information out to you guys. I promised Jamila she was going to get to go. Jamila, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Farrell. I think what is being missed in this conversation is that it's really about access and then the action and, of course, the accountability to the agreements that are made in those quarterly meetings. There is information sharing. It's clear that many members of the community have felt unheard, even if they have individualized access to even Judge Larson or any of your department heads. They give, tangible information that some folks can take action on, and then it's ripped away from them because reasons. And so it seems like a more formalized structure with the quarterly meeting provides a more systematic access to the leadership of the city. And once you establish that quarterly meeting, you can expand who else needs to be at the table, but you're the governing body that can bring the folks together. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to have an agreement that the schools are there, that, the Diversity Commission is there, the Human Services Commission there. Like, at this moment in time, the only request is really the mayor, the executive body of the city is there. And then you do the inviting of others who have access to the resources that are beyond your purview. Rather than us sitting here as a body of 100 people group thinking, when really you know what you have purview on. Judge Larson can pull in the resources of the district courts across the state and resources that have worked amazingly in other jurisdictions that I know that he's worked in, and helped them set up. And we know as a small community that there are solutions that are not based on just what the government will do. It's about how we bring community engagement together, community collaboration together, and moving the whole community forward. At the end of the day, the ideas that are going to come from this body or this quarterly meeting is going to support not just the African American community, it's going to support ideas that support other parts of the community. We just haven't had a systematic way to communicate it that's been effective and not cause more conflict and friction. So right now we're trying to have perfection rather than forward movement. And let's just get it started, work on how we can institutionalize it, because right now it's clear, it's on the record that if it stops within 6 months, we all know how to hold people accountable. We have the power of the vote. and it's clear that the citizens of Federal Way are very active in this community. And so we're gonna make sure that we are partnering with the city, partnering with other entities to see things happen that are positive for our community, the whole community.
All right, thank you, Jamila. I appreciate it. Okay, Lakeisha?
Yes, thank you, Jamila, for that, because I think you were kind of heading in the same direction. As you guys know, I do serve on the school board, but I'm also a community member here, long-term community member, and I come today wearing many hats, one of that being a parent. I'm in this community who has 4 kids who I hope raise their families here. So I really want us to stay focused on what is the issue and what we can control in this room. I think that's really important. I'm here for my kids. I'm here for all kids. So let's have that conversation about how it's impacting our Black and brown youth in this space and stick with it. I don't want to pivot to all these other people because we're going to lose the intention. And like Jamila was saying, I love that we have 100 people in the room. I'm Mayor Farrell, so opening that door and opening that invite is why I wanted to have this sooner than later, because we are here, we just haven't been asked in the front door. So I'm so excited to get to meet all the people on the screen at some point when outside opens. But I want to hear all the information. We have small Black businesses in the room, we have mental health providers, we have social services in the room, we have real estate agents in the room. So there's so many people that are really invested in this community. And I think you have a lot of the answers here. We may not need to pivot elsewhere. And then my follow-up before we leave is, how do we build community here? That is important to build relationships. Mayor Farrell, I'd like you to know a lot of these people on this call personally. And then how do we make sure that we get invites out to all the people on this list? So are we building an infrastructure to make sure that they are staying informed, and maybe even polling this group and asking them, what do you want to talk about at our next meeting? So let's use technology
Absolutely.
to really harness that and keep it going forward. We don't need 10,000 people to ask us. I think it's right here in this room. So
We got 90. Yeah, go ahead, Lamont, you're gonna say?
I said Ashe.
Yep. So yeah, we've got the list here from people who are here. We've got 97 people on the call, and we've got to figure out a way to build the agenda. I took my best run at it, but we're gonna get better every time, and we'll have a next meeting and we'll talk about process. Let me read to you. If anybody wants to speak, let's make sure you put your hand up. Let me read to you who's in line. I don't know if you guys can all see this or not, but next we've got Cynthia Ricks-McAtan, then we've got Erica Moore Jenkinson, then Councilmember Kochmar, then Shelley Anderson, and then Pamela Ash. That's who I've got so far. So Cynthia?
Thank you. Actually, Lakeisha and Jamila both said what I was going to say. So I've talked a bit. I will leave it on to other people.
I'll be hanging out too much, man.
Okay. Okay, Erica Moore Jenkinson.
Thank you
Erica?
very much, Mayor Farrell. I appreciate that. I just want to reiterate again what Ms. Phillips said, and also what Ms. Taylor said already. Please continue to reach out to the community at large. All those people here who are already here are an excellent starting point. And please also, as a new Federal Way resident, I've been here less than 2 years. I feel like a lot of what happens in terms of decision-making, policy discussion, things like this that are so important for our community, too much of that happens within a small circle of people. And I think you need to do more in terms of engaging the community at large and communicating more effectively and broadly across the board. There are lots of organizations, lots of people, lots of churches, lots of places where you could get the word out better. And so I want to encourage you to do that. And again, to reiterate, the agenda should be set by the community in which it is most affected. So we're deeply affected by these issues. And I would really like to see that happen where it's more of a community-centered plan that's coming from us. And we are working collectively, of course, with other organizations, but too often what happens in these meetings is how we started out. And it just doesn't feel productive. So thank you for having the meeting. I'm looking forward to hearing what's going to happen in the next quarterly meeting. And please continue to think collectively about that. That's all I have to say.
Great. Thanks, Erica. We'll get there. Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Kochmar.
Thank you, Mayor. I just thought I don't want to speak because I want to leave this for everyone else who's on the meeting to talk, because this is their meeting. I just wanted to give you a little historical perspective of the Korean quarterly meetings, since I was pretty much there way back in the beginning. And we were not a strong mayor form of government at that time. We were city manager, council form of government. We simply got together and we knew that we had some issues with some Korean leaders that came forward in the community because they couldn't speak English and they wanted to know what was going on, and they had problems that were affecting them. And thank you, Erica, for bringing up the idea of the agenda, because that's what happened. People would come forward with issues. We've set an agenda. All those on the council who could be there were there at the quarterly meetings, and it just simply developed that way. And it's continued that way because the need was there. And so there wasn't any ordinance, there wasn't anything formal, just that the need. Now, we may be different now because we're a strong mayor form of government, so I would defer to the city attorney if there is any need for any kind of an ordinance. But simply that's the way it did start, and it just simply continued because people wanted to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Now we've got, here's what I've got so far. I've got 3 speakers lined up. I have Shelley Anderson, then Pamela Ash, and then Dia Lynn Smith. Shelley, you're on.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shelley Anderson. Nice to meet you. A new resident to Federal Way, recently married. I wanted to encourage us, whenever you have a group of Black folks in the room, as powerful as this is, encourage all of the speakers, lead with Black, right? Lead with race. So for instance, Chief, if you are talking about how we are lowering, decreasing our excessive force, lead off with the fact that Black folks ain't getting hit upside the head the way that they used to, right? Judge Larson, my friend, if you are talking about the significance that misdemeanors have, lead off with, I understand the racial disparities that's happening, and this is where it is right now, right? Anytime you are able to get this many people in a room, we all want to know how Black folks are doing in Federal Way. So if you're really going to use our time wisely, clearly we are interested in what's happening in our community. Disaggregate those numbers, right? Make certain that we know, how does this impact us? What does that look like? And I encourage that for our next quarterly meetings, but glad to be your neighbor.
Great. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It's Shelley. All right. Thank you, Shelley. I think I got it right. All right. Now I've got Dia Lynn Smith. Dia?
Hi. Hi. Can you hear me? Hi.
Yes.
So thank you, everybody. I am Daylin Smith. I just live in Federal Way. I attend church with Pastor Banks. I just wanted to throw something out. Wow is all I can say. To come together in this type of a meeting with what I see as strength from a lot of the Black community. You know, we've used a lot of words during this meeting, empowerment, and I just sit here and think about so many things within the community that are missing that I've observed over the years. And I just would like to say, when that time comes for the community, you know, when the community comes together and establishes that agenda, when it's time to look at community-based services, I think it's important to think about the access for that and in ways that we're going to be able to educate non-Black, non-African-American families with the issues that are happening, because it's going to take a lot of discussion and unwinding and getting these very deeply rooted issues that have never been talked about. I've had several conversations at work. I work for the Department of the Army, where vulnerability is very important to understand. And I don't think there's enough people in the community who know how to access that because of fear, because of shame, maybe because of privilege. There's a lot of things that I'm not sure of the name, but one of the doctors had spoke about really getting into these conversations. And I totally agree with that because I am a provider in the community. I have been for quite some time. And when that time comes, I have an obligation to be able to inform people and educate and teach them about what this community is going to need. And honestly, it's going to take commitment, communication, and understanding, in my opinion. So I just wanted to throw it out there that I think this is great that this is coming out, but I think the deeper issue is hitting the small communities, whether that be through the school system, whether that be offering free access through the churches, maybe local providers that are willing to come out and help educate those who need to be educated in this regard regarding racism and recidivism and all that. So anyways, thank you for the time.
All right, thank you. All right, now we've got Pamela Ash. Pamela?
Thank you, Mayor Farrell. I just want to say that Lynn, Lamont, Kevin, Jamila, and Lakeisha have pretty much said most of what I was hoping to hear in terms of the reason I came on this call tonight. But one thing that I would really like to bring forward to the attention of everybody in the room, and I'm just so honored and amazed to see so many wonderful people in the room. My main concern tonight is the level of anxiety and fear that I have literally been going through the last 2 weeks. I'm a 47-year educator, career educator, as many of you know, and I never in my wildest imagination ever imagined looking forward to the opening of a new school year remotely. So I'm concerned that many Black and brown and poor families are going to experience disproportionate struggles and obstacles navigating remote learning. And I'm just hoping that people in the room, there is a wealth of talent here. If anyone is interested in maybe putting our heads together to kind of see if we can figure out some ways. I think it was Lakeisha and Jamila both touched on, and Judge Larson as well, and Kevin, the fact that we need community efficacy. And this is something that I am fearful. I'm losing sleep at night. Our Black and brown and poor immigrant communities are really going to suffer in terms of how to navigate remote learning for their children. And I know it's out of the school district's jurisdiction to really address this. If I were a parent of school-age children today and I had the means, I would be doing some of the very creative things that I know other families are doing in terms of making sure that their children have the best possible circumstances in terms of navigating remote learning. But I fear that too many of our families don't have either the means or the wherewithal to be able to accommodate their children that way. So if anyone's interested, I know that I was on another call with Senator Claire Wilson last night, and she's also fearful of the issues of inequity that this is going to present for some of our Black and brown and poor families. So if anybody is interested in teaming with me to kind of put our heads together to see if we can come up with some community resources that will aid those families, I would be extremely grateful.
Thank you, Pamela. I just had Thomas Fitchner, our IT director, put out a note that the chat is now open. So if anybody has any questions or comments, they could put it in the chat as well. And also, so we've got a couple more comments. Ashley Cormier. Ashley?
Sorry, I'm exercising. I do want to say thank you for having this meeting. I think that this meeting is very, very important. Sorry, I'm leaking off the treadmill, so sorry if I sound out of breath. I am. I do want to say that like I appreciate everyone's thoughts around like how this should be like structured, because that's very, very, very important. At first it was kind of like clustered, I felt like. So hopefully like we can definitely get to an agreement as far as like what the structure for this meeting is going to look like in the future. Whew. But I do want to say one thing as well, like around housing. Housing definitely disproportionately impacts Black people. And I feel like, just to be honest, I feel like the city's been really silent when it comes to issues when it comes to housing. So hopefully within this meeting, not today, of course, but having these meetings that we can really talk about housing and how it's an issue and how homelessness is a really big issue and how homelessness is a big issue because of how the housing system is set up to fail people, especially African Americans. They're disproportionately impacted by evictions. A lot of times they're picked on and harassed by their landlords, and I just really hope that in this meeting, in these meetings, that we can definitely pinpoint on what the city is going to do around making sure that housing is affordable for folks, housing is safe, and housing.
Hello? Oh, Ashley, can you hear us?
I think I kind of disconnected. I kind of
Okay.
disconnected, but sorry, but I just want to say, just want to make sure that when the like having these African American meetings, we do need to address housing and how it is impacting the Black people in Federal Way, and that's kind of all I really want to say.
Thank you very much, Ashley. Okay, now let me go back. I'm seeing the comments. I'm going to address a few of them in a few minutes. Cynthia, did you have another comment?
Just a couple of things. First of all, Pam, Ash, reach out to me. The Youth Violence Initiative at CHI Franciscan, we are holding a discussion and fundraising and efforts to address specifically that issue, the disproportionate access of students of color with distance learning, especially Learning 2.0. So reach out to me. I put my information in there.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Okay, and I know how to reach you too, so I'll try to make a note to be in contact. So again, I want to go back to something that Kevin started talking about, and I want to, I hope I say her name correctly, but I believe it was Shalee. That when you are approaching and discussing things in the African American or Black community, however way you want to call it, definitely preface it by saying how your particular industry or the interest that you're coming from is dealt with and what the stats are currently that impact us. That is so true. But secondly, the other part of that is understanding the terminology that we use. Understand what we mean by systemic racism. Understand what we mean by inclusion. Understand what we mean by disparate impact and disproportionality, right? And so I think it's very important that perhaps maybe the Federal Way Black Collective can get with Kevin and we provide some of this information. I don't know if Lynn had already provided you some of that already, Mayor, and the documents that she sent. But I think it's very important. If she did, that's awesome, because we all need to be on the same page. And at the next meeting that we have, those definitions and those terms ought to be available to everyone so that we're all on the same page. So when we say it, we are meaning the same thing, because someone's version of systemic racism may look totally different than another person's definition. And there is one that we as Black people agree on, and it is our truth because we're the ones experiencing it. So I think that's very important to put that out there.
So yeah, so to add on to that, Miss Cynthia, I know in the chat, everybody has been talking about everybody on here on this Zoom getting together outside of here. You mentioned Kevin Baker, the Federal Black Collective has been connected and having conversations with almost everybody on here. And so what we need to do is have a collective meeting, because like we've talked to you, we've talked to Kevin Baker, we've talked to everybody's talked to everybody in their own silos. And I think this right here showed that we just need to have that conversation outside of this Zoom here together and bring those resources to connect those dots. And then again, like I could only say, and it's not to be one way or the other about anything, but I just want to remind everybody that this is the Federal Way Black or African American quarterly meeting. You know what I'm saying? So I understand that, you know, we're going to reach out to other communities as well. One of the things when Representative Jesse Johnson, he had a community meeting where he brought together community members from different cultures. And what we all realized at that meeting was that we all had different needs in the community. So I just want to remind and just always reiterate that this is the Federal Way African American community meeting. So we're addressing and pushing African American issues. And then there are other meetings that we can have collective conversations about how we can connect, but there are specific things in our community that we have to address. And then those other communities as well, they I'm not saying that we can't connect, but that's the purpose of this meeting. So I just wanted to add that.
All right, thank you, Lamont. And then could I ask everybody who has not done so, could you please, well, actually, let me ask a quick question. Thomas, are you on the line? Can you hear me?
Yes, Mayor.
Are you able to capture everybody's email that's on this call right now from the history of this event? Or do we need everybody that's on you're able to capture that?
Yeah, Zoom records a chat log. And so what we'll do is we'll just, after this meeting's all done, wrapped up tomorrow, I'll export that chat log and give it to Pam, and she can extract everybody's contact information and generate a good clean list for you.
Very good. Okay, so I want everybody to know you're going to get communication from us in a group email from, for everybody that participated. I would also, we've got Representative Jesse Johnson. One of the things I did not mention is I believe not only Bob Regner, a local columnist in town, joined us, but also Olivia Sullivan, the news reporter from the Federal Mirror, is online. And we're very happy to have the Mirror represented today for really what is a historic meeting and the first of many, many. And I want to reiterate that while we're going to be talking about structure and exactly how we're doing it, we are moving forward. We are having a quarterly meeting. And I think what was expressed before, I think Judo, actually, you sent me a message, a chat a few minutes ago saying what's on the to-do list. I think the action items are to really discuss about how to truly institutionalize and make permanent the quarterly meeting, how that accomplished, and really work on an equitable and inclusive process to set the agenda. And I want to be thinking about how we get what the appropriate process is moving forward to make sure that there's buy-off with the Diversity Commission, with the council, and all of that to make sure that there's a record. So let me figure out as I said before, the history of that. We do have Representative Jesse Johnson, who's asked to say a few words. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. I really appreciate this first forum tonight, and I'm glad that it's going to be sustainable. I really believe this moment's calling for all of our local leaders to really take a look and reflect on how institutional racism is influencing our policies and social discrimination as well, and how we're combating that. And so I just wanted to throw out there, moving forward, I think we've established it, but if we can maintain centering the Black community in these spaces when we're talking about Black issues, and also taking bold action. So what actions are we going to take beyond this meeting in preparation for the next meeting? And I just wanted to throw out a couple suggestions as we're looking at identifiable needs in our community, who's at the table and who's not tonight within our Black community. The Black community also means the community of immigrants from Africa as well. So in African countries. So making sure that we have that community represented. How are we looking at things versus using a strengths-based model? And how can we identify local leaders to help support the work beyond this evening? So I'll just leave with that, but I just think that it's important that we make sure everyone's represented in future meetings.
Great points, Representative Johnson. Thank you. Okay, anything for the Judo? I think I answered your questions, hopefully. Wow, we've got 33. It's a good thing we opened up the chat when we did.
Mayor, may I just a moment?
Sure.
I just want to express my gratitude and for everybody in the discussions we had, even the spirited ones. Always try to learn. And I did post in the chat, anybody that wants to come and visit at court can come and visit. I've even allowed people to sit on the bench with me so they can see what we deal with. And the court system does there are disparities. And the question is, how do we address them? And we got to address them together. So my attitude is disagreement's an opportunity, not a threat, because we learn from that. And so challenging me is what I seek people out that challenge me, because I want to learn. So don't ever, I don't want to be afraid of challenging people, and I don't want anybody ever be afraid of challenging me to think differently, because that's how we grow. So please take me up on the opportunity to come and visit. And I love, because we're kind of a mysterious branch of government. We're the offensive lineman of government. We only get noticed when we jump off sides. And but bottom line is the love of what I do, the love for the people I see. I wish I could put it in some tangible way so you could see it. But please come and visit. Thanks.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Yeah, who's that?
This is Tirza again.
Oh, hi, Tirza.
All the comments that have gone forth, but I also want to bring back and reiterate that to say again that I'm in full agreement with this conversation, because most of you know who we are. I said what I said. Half of you probably were like, "Oh my gosh, an angry Black woman," but no, I spoke truth in the way that I speak it. But because you don't understand me, and you know, Mayor Farrell, I know you and I talk to Andy all the time, so you guys may not have been offended by what I said and how I said it, because this is who I am. But because you don't take the opportunity to know me, this is all about having conversation, getting to know who your Black community people are. And you cannot pick our leaders for us because you don't know who they are, because you don't know us. So no, you cannot set the agendas. And you have to have conversations before saying, you don't know what we need. How are you going to set an agenda? You don't start having these conversations with us. So I just want to kind of keep us on that same thing. We can't start setting all this stuff. We don't even know, you don't even know who we are. Take time to get to know us. That's the reason why we started this. And I do appreciate you guys all for being here and for listening.
Thank you, Tirza. Okay, we'll continue to work at it.
Hey,
Let me.
Hey, Mayor
yeah,
Farrell, this is Andre Sims.
Go ahead.
I have been able to listen to the rhetoric, and I believe that we are, as Tirza just said, getting down to the brass tacks. I just want to say that the faith community is represented in the call. And Lamont, of course, we're having other conversations in these silos, but if on the chat, I haven't been able to see the chat just due to the space in which where I'm located, but if in the chat, if we can have the Black Collective provide options for those in the Black community that aren't aware of where, when, how, and how often, and how busy, and how faithful, and how real the Black Collective has been as it relates to how we got here today. If there's an opportunity to do that so that not just the faith community, but other communities who are on the call, because there was a call to be on the call. But now to move from just being present to actually being active, that would be very helpful. I don't know if the chat is the only way to do it, but if
I agree.
If we can get that done, that would be very helpful for the next time that we have our quarterly meeting. There will have been, hundreds of voices involved in what the 4, 5, 6, 7 faithful people have created for us today.
Yep, for sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think I've got it. Okay, thank you. Anybody else who'd like to say anything? We're at about 10 minutes before 9. Let me just see if any hands are up. We've had a good discussion so far. I really appreciate it. Oh, Cheryl Hurst. Cheryl?
Some of us need to be educated I was hoping somewhere on, with all these people that have lots of connections, that maybe you could put some forums together to educate those of us who seriously need some education on what's happening around the community, with the Black community, with brown community, because it's a little hard to get in the middle of something and try to be helpful and try to be understanding if you're not truly educated on what's really going on and how we can help. So if there's someone out there that wants to put something together to educate.
I think that's something that we could put on the agenda, Cheryl, that as the quarterly meetings.
I honestly have to interject, Lamont. I think that this is a space for Black voices to be amplified and communicate our concerns, and we can draft something to share, but I don't think this is a space to impact that.
No. But don't cut me off, please don't cut me off. You know what I'm saying? I was gonna say, in the meeting, in the side meeting that Pastor Sims was talking about, we can discuss what Cheryl was saying. So this is not the meeting for that, but to put that on the agenda and realize that other people want to understand what we're going through as well. So how would we address that as a group in another meeting? So I agree, but I didn't get a chance. So forgive me.
Yes, that's correct, Lamont. I probably just didn't pose it correctly.
Can I say something if you're finished, Cheryl?
Sure, Tirza, go ahead.
Yeah,
I am. Thank you.
Again, I'm kind of offended that, and I'm going to say it again. To me, that's white privilege. And I've had this conversation with Cheryl, and even on a weekend, we go to and we want things people to live. We want them to be able to live a good life, to work and eat and enjoy this country. We don't want anything more than you want. So I don't know how hard that is for you guys to understand. We don't want anything else. Just learn who we are. We're no different than you are.
I guess I'm not putting it across correctly.
No,
what
just
I'm
come
trying
and
to
listen.
understand.
That's what this is for, having the conversation, to come and listen. And you'll find out that I'm no different than you are. I'm no different than your neighbor. I'm no different than anybody else. We're just Black. That's it. We believe just like you do. We want the same thing you do. And this is the hour now. We're no longer just willing to ask for it nicely. And so you guys can excuse me if you want, but I'm tired. Everybody keeps saying this. I'm 63 years old. This didn't start yesterday. My father is 90. This did not start yesterday, but we are tired of you guys acting like you don't know what a Black person is. We're just like you. We want the same things you want. We are more alike than we are different, but we are no longer going to allow you to continue to do that. So this is what this meeting is about.
So Cheryl, just to say that, so basically, instead of maybe bringing it up at this meeting, maybe like email somebody and say, hey, I wanna be a part of it. So basically, it's from a situation of we having a meeting and then somebody comes in and says, well, hold up, well, we want to know too. And it's like, well, that's not what we're talking about. Let us discuss that, and then we'll reach out. Or if you want to reach out to somebody, email, basically, is from a respect standpoint, is all.
So for
Thank
all
you.
those people who need a historical perspective and really want to know the passion that we have and why we are so convicted in our efforts to be heard, to be heard, and to change things and do it now, I would encourage you to go to Black Lives Matter's website. And there is a whole list of resources that you can read about to understand the prison industrial complex, to understand the inequities in healthcare, to understand how federal legislation through redlining has perpetuated the disproportionate wealth gap in Black communities. There are tons of resources there. And maybe after reading some of those, you'll have a perspective of why we feel the way that we do. When George Floyd was murdered, several of my colleagues reached out to me and said, Cynthia, are you okay? Tell me how you feel and what can I do to support you? And my feeling was, and no offense to anyone who is here who may have been one of those people who reached out to me, but it is not my job to educate you on the perils of my life as an African-American woman and the talks that I've had to have with my child about being Black in America, when you see it every day. It's that privilege that you live in that acts as a barrier. I'm saying remove the barrier, do your research. I have to do my research. For example, I have to know that Columbus did not find the United States, the North American continent. He did not. If indigenous people were already here, how you gonna find something, right? So just like we all have to be enlightened about certain things, everyone else should do the same. I would encourage you to do that because this is not the platform. Thank you.
Okay.
But there are places that we can.
Thank you, Cynthia, for saying that. And it is not your job, nor anyone else on here. I can say that it is my job because that is the work that I do. So, Mr. Mayor, Your Honor, if you guys can come up with a budget, I would be more than happy to come and work with you guys and help increase the education of City Council and other departments and the Federal Way Police Department. More than happy. My office is right across the street from y'all.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Baker. Thank you for the offer. We certainly need to talk at some point. We've got about 3 minutes to go. Is there anybody who'd like to say anything else? Let me look to see if there are any hands up. Anybody else? We've had a good discussion. Council, is anybody on the, I know that the council president has spoken, and Councilmember Kochmar and Councilmember Cefados and Councilmember Tran or Baruso. Would you like to say anything?
Hi, Mayor. Yeah, this is Greg Baruso, Councilmember Baruso. So I'd like to thank the community for coming out tonight. This is a time, and I know that everyone has talked about this, and some folks too. Being comfortable, being uncomfortable is the point that is made, and it's been this way. And I've talked to a lot of folks about this and the mayor about this at length, and this is just a start. This is a starting point for us to take that leap. I think Judge Larson also talked about the trust. There is a big trust factor here that everyone has to kind of take into account. We have to trust each other to work this through. Just like the COVID deal where we have to get through this together, this is something we have to work together to get to. There are a lot of things that I know that our council members want to work on, that the mayor wants to work on, our staff wants to work on. We want to do with everybody. And that's why we're here tonight. And I was here to listen to, just to make sure, that's what we're about too. So I just wanted to say that, and thank you everyone for participating. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councilor Tran, did you want to say something?
Mayor, thank you. First of all, I want to thank you, the mayor, for reaching out to the community to have this meeting. And I want to thank everybody for being here. I think this is the conversation that, in my opinion, is long overdue. I'm glad that we came together today. And by listening to many of you who spoke today, obviously we have a lot of work to do. But I also glad that we took this first step. As for me, one member on the council, I am committed to do whatever I can to reach out to the Black community. I am in supportive of having a quarterly meeting so that we can sit down and listen the concern from the community. So again, thank you for everybody who coming in today and spend 2 hours with us today. And we can get through this. And so with that, thank you.
Okay. Well, we've hit, thank you, everybody. And thank you, council, members of the public, and members of from all the different parts of our community. Thank you, our representatives. Johnson School Board Director Phillips and all the Diversity Commission members and all the members of the public and the folks that spoke tonight. Thank you. And the folks that presented in the beginning. I just want to say a big thank you. We're going to be working on these issues. We're going to be working on, as I discussed, agenda building. I think that's a key, learning point in regard to how we move forward. Also, regard to how we structure these meetings and how we memorialize this and make sure that there is that there is a regularity or as we have been referring to it as institutionalization of it, which will be enshrined in its quarterly practice moving forward. So with that, we are at 9:01. I want to say once again, thank you. Great discussion. Really appreciate each and every one of your time. I always say your time is your life, and how you spend it and who you spend it with determines the course and character of it. So I think we're all better for the time that we spent tonight, and it really is. This is just the beginning of a discussion. So thank you, everybody. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.